our brains naturally tend to focus on the negative. We create problems that don't even exist sometimes. Welcome to the Connect Method Parenting Podcast, where correction is out, connection is in, and your kids want to listen to you. I'm Andy Martineau, creator of Connect Method Parenting, here to help you stay calm, confident, and connected no matter what. Hey everyone. It's so good to be back talking with you all, and I'm still pinching myself that it's 2025. It was a kind of strange, weird New Year's for us. We're in New Zealand right now. We're wrapping up our adventure, our multi-month. I think it'll end up being 5.5 months. I keep saying 6. It was going to be 6, but we're coming home a couple weeks earlier than I was initially thinking. So anyway, our 5.5 month adventure, we're wrapping it up in New Zealand. And the time difference with the States is simple, but also trippy. Simple if you think about it as us just being 4 hours behind Mountain Time or 6 hours behind Eastern Time. But trippy if you realize we are really 6 hours behind and 1 day ahead. I know it's a really weird way to say it, but it's been so much easier for me to wrap my brain around figuring out what time it is at home by saying, oh, we're 4 hours behind them, but then I have to add a day. Or if you want to be accurate, we are 18 hours ahead of the East Coast or 16 hours ahead of where I'm from in the Mountain Time zone. But it's easier just to say 6 hours behind or 4 hours behind and not mention the day ahead because it's crazy to think that I'm a day ahead. But because of this crazy phenomenon of being on the other side of, the international dateline, we hit 2025 18 to 21 hours before everyone we love and know in the States hit it. So we all sent silly texts to our friends saying something like, Happy New Year from the future, or 2025 is great. Trust me, I know. Being silly and funny, trying to be funny at least, to our own delight. We were just hanging out with ourselves, which was the most cool thing ever, was to be just with my family. And I'm going to get emotional. Yesterday, my daughter Becca, who's my youngest, and I have been decided let's use proper English here, decided to do multiple reels. Our initial goal was a reel every single day we're in New Zealand, which would be 60 reels. And we have not successfully done that. We've done almost every day, but we've missed a couple. And yesterday we were talking about what we were going to do for our dance reel. And she ran in and she said, Mom, I made a compilation. That's the word, compilation of all of the dances that we've done. And I put it to the Wicked soundtrack, which she loves Wicked. She's watched it twice. We watched it at the theater here in Christchurch. And then she watched it again now that it's available on demand. She loves it. She put it to this super cute song. You should go check it out on my Instagram at Connect Method Parenting. And we put the compilation on there. Anyway, the reason I was getting emotional is I was seeing all of these places that we've been and things that we've done. And it's been the most amazing adventure. And just like any amazing thing, it has to come to an end. And we're still 5 weeks away from going back home. But I realize we're going back home, and we were always going back home. It's so funny, but the date is set, it's drawing near, and I'm getting emotional. And I'm thinking about all of these precious moments that we've had together. One being celebrating the new year all together. I don't know if we'll do that again for a long time, because I'm guessing next year we're not going to be traveling, and they'll probably go out with their friends, which I love. And I'm so happy that they're doing that. And I will miss having that time with them. And this adventure has been one of the most illuminating, life-changing experiences of my life. And so as we were all together in Christchurch, that's where we were for New Year's. We watched a movie. We played our favorite game, Skull King, which if you haven't played that, it's we play it all of the time. It's one of our favorite, if not our favorite game. It's a card game that we were able to bring with us. I don't know if they sell it here, but we brought it with us because we can't leave home without Skull King. We ate popcorn, which my husband loves popcorn. It's his favorite snack. I didn't grow up eating as much popcorn as he did. He ate a lot of popcorn growing up. Well, I actually don't know if he ate a lot of popcorn growing up. I need to ask him now that I say that out loud. But all I know is he loves getting his family together and sitting by us. I didn't understand this when we first got married or even when we first started having kids, because I was wanting to go be productive and do the dishes or do a project. And I just didn't want to sit down and watch a movie. It seemed like such a waste of time. That's my type A perfectionistic brain speaking. And I've come to realize how important it is for him to spend time playing games, being with us. And one of the ways he likes to connect is by watching a show so that we can talk and laugh about it. So we're watching a show. We didn't get through the whole movie. We were all so tired. Went on this gorgeous hike. Actually, New Year's Day, we went on the gorgeous hike. New Year's Eve, I believe it was New Year's Eve, we went and actually got clothing so we could go on a hike because none of us brought the right clothing. We didn't realize we were going to end up in New Zealand. When we started this adventure, we started with a one-way ticket to Europe. So crazy. A one-way ticket to Europe, and we weren't exactly sure how the trip would unfold. We had the first 6 weeks, maybe 2 months scheduled. And then we didn't know exactly where we'd end up or where we'd go next. We ended up going to Egypt after Europe, Thailand, and then New Zealand, multiple places in Europe. Every part of it has just been miraculous. But the reason I started on this tangent was because yesterday Becca comes in. She has this compilation reel of all of our dances, and I'm looking at it thinking, oh my gosh, this is everything. This is it. This is what matters. So, man, I didn't think I was going to even talk about this today, but it's just like, I hope you've had time to reflect on last year. And if you're in league, we're doing that for the whole month of January. We're going to review and reflect what happened in 24 and move into 25 and make it the best year yet. But not because last year was necessarily bad, but because this year is just going to be even more incredible. Every year is our best year, and then the next year's better. So we're doing this work in there, and I've been preparing and thinking about it, and the classes I'm teaching in there I've been prepping for, and I'm just beyond excited to guide everybody through some of this process of reflection that I've been taking myself through that is just so powerful. But it really hit me yesterday when Becca brought me that reel, that compilation reel, because it was like a mini version of reflection on what my life has been like as we've been traveling. And we've done reels, dance reels. She always has loved to do dance reels with me, which she's my girl. I love that. I love that dance reel. Not all my kids like it, but she gets me in my dancing. And I'm not a good dancer by any stretch of the imagination. I was a gymnast, so I have dance skills as far as a gymnast dance skills go. And I think gymnasts now have much better dance skills than we did back in the day. But when I was in my gymnastics era, that's what my girls always say, they're in their such and such era. So when I was in my gymnastics era, we didn't have great dance skills. So I bring my rudimentary dance skills to the table, which are very rough. And Becca coaches me on all of the latest, what do you want to call it, technique of the TikTok dance. I post mine mostly on Instagram, although I think we're firing up the TikTok thing this year. It's going to happen. Anyway, so she helps me and we get it done. And I was looking at it and I was thinking, holy moly, like this is so amazing. So that's what we're going to be doing in League. If you're hearing this, we're going to be doing this year in reflection. And one of the things we're going to do as a part of that is to reflect on our life through our camera reel. So I can't wait to take you through it. It's so fun. All right. All of that being said, to lead me into saying, I hope you've had an amazing 2025 so far. And even if you haven't, I want you to know that you are in the right place, because today we're going to talk about how to solve your problems. And man alive, unknown to my brain, which is so funny because I know life is 50-50, but my brain did not think it was going to be 50-50 on this trip. I have had a lot of opportunities to deal with the 50-50 here and deal with the things my brain considers a problem. So we're talking about how you can use conscious curiosity and awareness. Bits of the STEAR framework, I'm not going to go into the whole thing today, but bits of the STEAR framework are going to definitely bleed into this episode to break apart problems, to break them down so that you can approach them differently no matter what you're dealing with as a parent or just as a human being dealing with life. So let's do this. So first, we have to define what a problem actually is. So how do you know something is a problem in your life or in your parenting? So using the Connect Method parenting principles, we're going to break this down. First, just let me remind you, all problems aren't inherently problems. They're problems because of how we are thinking about them. If you're like, what What are you talking about, Andy? Hang with me for a second. If you've heard me explain this before, hang with me, stick with me, stay with me today, because we need to review this, heaven knows, a million bajillion times. Feels like that, but I think it's thousands of times, to have something stick, to change our belief, our filter, our thought about something and a problem, so that I'm going to define it this way so we can start changing the way we think about problems. A problem at its core is a situation that is made up of a mix of facts plus our thoughts about those facts. For example, let's say your child refuses to clean their room. This may have happened many dozens of times with my kids growing up, especially my boys. They just did not understand the problem with a messy room. Actually, I think we just had a totally different filter for what is a messy room rather. So let's say your child doesn't have any interest in cleaning their room. That's a problem for you. The messy room is just a neutral situation. It's our thoughts about that room. Let's say we think they're so disrespectful, or I just can't stand this chaos. I can't even think. Those were both thoughts that were coming through my head as I looked at my kids' bedrooms that were what I would call quote unquote messy. But the room condition, the state of the room was neutral, was neither here nor there. It was my thought about it that created the feeling of frustration or overwhelm. Does that make sense? So to your kids, the messy room is no biggie. And specifically, I remember my youngest son in high school pushing back big time about making his bed. He just did not get why this was something he needed to do. He said to me many times, "But Mom, what's the point? I'm just going to mess it up again in a few hours when I take a nap after school or I go to bed tonight." To him, that unmade bed and maybe those few articles of clothing, socks, shoes, papers, whatever else was there that day was not concerning to him at all. So the fact that I made it a problem didn't mean it was a problem for him. It was the way I was looking at the problem, not the facts themselves, that made it a problem. Same set of facts, same situation, different thoughts. My thought equaled problem. Shouldn't have a messy room. You need to learn how to make your bed so you're a responsible human. My son's thoughts, this is not a problem. Who cares? No one looks at my room. All of those are things he said. Okay, so you might be thinking, well, this is great information, but what do we do with this information? Well, the first step in solving any problem is to clearly separate the situation, that's what actually is happening, or what the room actually looks like, so those are the facts, from our thoughts about it. This is going to help us see the situation objectively and recognize that the problem, quote unquote, is rooted in our perception of the problem. So let's break it down. If your teen stays out past curfew, the facts would be perhaps that my teenager arrived home at 1 a.m. So then my thought might be, they don't care about the rules. That thought could lead to frustration. It could lead to anger. It could lead to irritation, to hurt, to resentment. So many emotions. It might be all of those emotions. It might be a few of those emotions. And then whatever emotion it brings up for me drives my action, my reaction to this situation. Maybe I yell. Maybe I ground. Maybe I lecture. Maybe I guilt trip. By separating the neutral facts, the time my teenager actually got home, from my thoughts about it, we can start to see how your thinking shapes your emotional response. Quick side note. Sometimes when people learn this, they think, oh, if I'm the one creating my problems with my thoughts, I should never let myself see anything as a problem again. But that's not the point. That's not what I'm saying. It's completely okay. It's often very necessary to identify problems in our mind. For instance, if your child is struggling at school, acknowledging it as a problem that you want to find a solution to is important. So the goal isn't to deny problems exist. It's to take responsibility for how I'm interpreting the situation and then decide how I want to respond rather than reacting on autopilot. I want to stay in conscious awareness. I want to stay regulated or in a parasympathetic state, calm. I want my higher thinking, that prefrontal cortex, to stay online. None of that happens once I get emotionally triggered. So let's talk about problems. Problems are, in fact, the way we grow and evolve as humans. So creating problems and then solving problems is how we stretch ourselves. We learn and ultimately become a better version of ourselves. And when we approach problems consciously, rather than creating them unconsciously, they become even more powerful tools for our growth. So here's the takeaway. Situations are never the problem. Situations are just the facts. They're neutral. It's our thought about the situations Often we're comparing that to something ideal or something about the way it should be compared to the way it is. So he should be making his bed and he's not. So I have this difference, this divide. My brain is not happy with it and the problem is created in my mind. And to some degree, this is a good thing. Imagine if your child is throwing a tantrum because they don't want to leave the park. The fact that they're crying and yelling isn't a problem. It's just the facts. It's the situation. But if I unconsciously allow myself to think this is so embarrassing, people must think I'm a bad parent. And then I have the emotion of shame and frustration. That's going to lead me one place. But when we consciously define the problems, we're taking ownership for the experience. We're opening the door to creating meaningful solutions. So throughout history, the greatest challenges have been solved by people identifying problems like hunger, inequality, or disease, and then deciding how to address them. And here's the good news, you all. Parenting offers so many opportunities for us to have a situation that our brain might identify as a problem and figure out how to solve it in a way that's productive. So let's say that you're struggling with your teenager's habit of leaving their dishes all over the house. If you approach this problem unconsciously, you're going to get annoyed, you might complain, you might nag at them, and still see very little to no progress. But if you pause and you separate the situation, the dishes, from your thoughts, they're so lazy and disrespectful, you can redefine the problem in a way that helps you find a solution. So the first step in solving our problems is to define the problem clearly and simply. And the way you define a problem has massive impact on how you can solve it. So when we mix in blame and drama and frustration, that's how we're defining the problem. And now it's overwhelming and we feel hopeless. It feels impossible. Instead, what if we defined it in the simplest and with the most positive words possible? For example, here's an unhelpful definition of a problem. Let's say, my kid is lazy and never listens to me. Versus a helpful definition of the problem might look like the dishes are left out because we don't have a system for cleaning up after meals that works for everyone. Or there's something that I don't understand that's leading my child to not put their dishes away, and I can figure that out. So the clearer and calmer your definition is of the problem, the easier it is to approach the solution with wisdom instead of emotional reactivity. So that's the first step. We got to define the problem clearly and simply. Step 2 is we need to be a conscious problem solver. So too often we avoid problems by buffering. We avoid things. We scroll on our phones instead of dealing with the behavior. We eat junk food because it gives us a little bit of a dopamine hit and we feel better, even though we're not really addressing the mess or the lack of organization or whatever it is. The kids not doing their chores. So we distract ourselves in ways to avoid looking at the solution, which is the facts, and understanding our own mind around them so that we can be conscious in how we move forward. But when you consciously face the problem, instead of avoiding it, you break it down in a productive way. So you're separating the situation, the facts, from your thoughts about the situation. You're identifying the emotions that those thoughts are creating for you. You're looking at your actions and your results that lead to the result. And then you decide how you want to think about the problem, what actions you want to take in the future. So let's talk about a scenario where your child throws a tantrum because they don't want to leave the park. We mentioned that earlier, right? If you separated your thoughts from the situation, you might redefine the problem as, I want to help my child transition from the park to home in a way that I respect. I want to set them up for success. So if they do have a meltdown, I know how to navigate that. I want to be more playful in the way I respond so that I can mitigate unnecessary meltdowns. I don't want to go into a power struggle. There's so many creative and resourceful thoughts and problem-solving strategies that you could come up with when you are consciously problem solving. This reframing allows your brain to come up with solutions. It's like creating a plan so that you know what you're going to do the next time the meltdown begins, or even before the meltdown, the transition from park to home needs to happen. So you start brainstorming and you think, okay, I need to go over and get close to them. I need to look at him in the eyes before I ask him it's time to go home. I could probably try turning the walk home into a game. I could make something at home be so exciting that my child's focus goes from the disappointment of leaving the park to the excitement of what happens when we come home. When we step back and we observe our life like this, you become the watcher of your own thoughts and actions. You can see the bigger picture and approach problems with curiosity and wisdom rather than feeling stuck. Parenting problems, partner problems, work problems, personal growth problems, when you consciously define them and you step into this role of thoughtful problem solver, you gain control over your experience. And that's the true power of working with problems. Sometimes the fastest way to solve a problem is simply to consider that maybe it's not the problem your brain's making it. Now, I'm not saying you go all positive Pollyanna and avoid your problems. I'm saying sometimes when we take a second look and we step back and we get curious about the situation and we separate the facts from our thoughts about it and we keep our nervous system calm and we get curious and creative, this process can save us from unnecessary stress, from unnecessary emotional turmoil, from getting caught in a past cycle of drama and overwhelm, and to be able to see, oh, I used to think this was a big problem and my nervous system wanted to go into all this drama, but now I see that this is not the problem I used to think it was. Our brains naturally tend to focus on the negative. We create problems that don't even exist sometimes. So we're going to try to catch these earlier as we become better at conscious problem solving. We can stop them in their tracks by identifying the old filters, the old perceptions that used to cause us to go into drama and not problem solving mode, and start to shift those. So here's an example. Let's say your teenager rolls their eyes at you and you are just, wow, triggered by that. They do not want to unload that dishwasher. And you might initially have the trigger, the thought, the filter of they're being so disrespectful and they don't value what I do for them. Now, this thought is going to lead you to having a big, fat, negative problem. You're going to feel frustrated, irritated, disrespected. But if you step back and you separate the eye rolling from your thought about it, you can make that mean something much more empowering that allows you to actually get to the root of the problem. So you could think, hey, that eye rolling is just how my teen is expressing their frustration or their dislike for doing the dishes, or maybe their dislike for me right now, or their pathway to independence. I get to understand them more. I get to lean in. I get to listen. I get to understand. And I get to problem solve in a way that I can respect and actually make headway on the situation, because chances are they're going to roll their eyes again tomorrow when I ask them to unload the dishwasher again. So instead of going into a tug of war, how about we go into a partnership? And instantly, when we start to think about it like this, the problem feels lighter or even disappears entirely because we've chosen a new perspective. So let's look at a common scenario. Let's say that it's your birthday and you're hoping that everybody will remember your birthday, will text you, will maybe say something nice. Maybe your kids will do something of service. Maybe your partner will give you a little gift, and nobody does it. Nobody does anything on your birthday. And you ask yourself, okay, what's the problem? And you might say to yourself, well, everyone's so inconsiderate. Nobody did anything for my birthday and it really hurts. So the situation is no gifts, no calls, no texts on my birthday. Or if it was maybe one text or one call, but maybe your mom didn't call or your best friend forgot, or your kids didn't mention it. So you might feel really hurt because your thought is everyone's so inconsiderate. Or maybe you go into, I must just not be important to people. People don't care about me. So you have this filter. And then chances are it's going to create some perhaps avoiding the people who didn't reach out, stewing in self-loathing or maybe resentment or maybe frustration. Depends on how we filter things like this. I find some people really turn it inward and beat themselves up and make it mean that they're not good enough. I feel like there's another category of people who are just really frustrated that other people didn't think about it. How could they not remember me? And maybe a combo of both. But what if you reframed this? You could decide, my kids love me and it's okay they didn't do anything. My relationship with my friend or my mother or my kids is way more than remembering my birthday. You could even take responsibility for the situation and say, I just didn't even remind my kids it was my birthday. I didn't tell them that I'd love them to spend time with me, or that I was really hoping that they would send me a text. This shifts the thinking and it puts you in control. Instead of waiting for your kids to meet your unspoken expectations or your mother or your friend, you take action to ensure your needs are met. I have so many friends who have taken celebrating their birthday into their own hands, ordering themselves a cake, flowers, planning themselves a party, planning activities. And I love it. I love it. I've done this for myself. It's the best thing ever. When we just own the celebration we want to have and we celebrate ourselves, and then we might invite people around us to come along. Hey, I'm going to go do this thing. I'm going to order myself a cake. You guys are welcome to eat a piece if you want. And you know what will happen is people will feel excited for your birthday. Sure, it would be awesome if your kids and your husband celebrated your birthday the way you were hoping, but why leave it to chance? Why leave it to chance? There is nothing wrong with creating the life you want and owning it 100%. And you know what's crazy is once you start doing this, people start doing all of the things you were hoping they would do before because you're just so fun to be around. They love having someone who doesn't put those expectations and pressures on them. And you know how it feels for us? Amazing. Amazing when we just decide, hey, I'm going to take care of myself. And the birthday's a great one. I had a good friend, Jennifer, she was on a few episodes ago. We were talking about visioning, who planned the most exquisite birthday party for herself and did it out of service to everyone else, wanted everyone else to just have the most beautiful experience on her birthday. And she made it happen. She did the whole thing, and it was the best thing she's decided to do. She's done it many, many years. And I love hearing every year when her birthday comes around what she's doing for it because it's so good. I'm so inspired. When we let go of the idea that others should automatically know or do certain things, we free ourselves from unnecessary hurt. So for example, if your child constantly forgets to pack their lunch for school, you might initially think, oh, they're so irresponsible. I'm always packing their lunch and picking up the slack. And you could reframe this instead if you want to have a better experience around the lunch packing and ultimately get them to learn how to pack their own lunch. But you could start with, I haven't taught them how to do this on their own yet. Or maybe I haven't created a system that makes this really easy for everybody. And from there, you could brainstorm something that would be of service to everyone. There might be a season where from a compassion alpha place, you decide that you're going to pack the lunches because you want to. And you own that and you decide that you're not doing it because they're irresponsible. You're doing it because you want to, because you feel like that would be of service. That would be the highest service to your children. But there also might be a season where from that same compassionate alpha, you decide, hey, I'm going to hold this limit. I'm going to set this limit. My kids need to learn to pack their own lunches. This is a good time. There's nothing preventing us from packing our own lunches right now. And in this case, you might get curious about what's stopping them from having the habit instilled to pack their own lunch. And you're going to problem solve that. Maybe you think, okay, we need to prep the night before. Maybe if they're little, we need to have a song go on every morning where you pack your lunch to this song. We did so many things when my kids were little, orchestrated to music. We had a song for waking up. We had a song for coming down for breakfast. We had a song for their chores. And the kids still talk about it. They're much older and we don't do that anymore because they just don't need that. But when they were younger, it was such a fun, playful way to get everybody engaged in the morning. So bottom line is you empower yourself to solve the problem and it feels a heck of a lot better. Many problems can be solved by simply shifting our thoughts about them. So here's the deal though. Not all problems can or should be reframed this way. Some require action, discussion, deeper solutions, but recognizing that reframing is an option gives you a powerful tool to handle life's challenges more effectively. So by consciously deciding what's a problem, how do I want to think about it, then you get to create a life that feels manageable and peaceful and connected. Whether it's a parenting struggle, a friendship strain, a personal expectation, this decision to look at problems with clarity and creativity is going to help you know what to do next and do this next action from a place of ownership and capacity. And then once you've defined the problem, you've separated the situation from the thoughts, you've simplified it, you can ask yourself, what caused this problem? This step is so important because many people spend a lot of time addressing symptoms of problems rather than root causes of problems. And when you focus on the symptoms, the problems keep resurfacing. But when you identify and solve the root cause, oftentimes we eliminate the problem entirely, or at least we are making significant headway and we have a deeper understanding of what's going on. So imagine if you're frustrated because your child never seems to do their homework on time and the situation seems clear to me. It's homework time or there's a deadline with their homework and they don't meet it. And your thought initially might be, this is so irresponsible of them. And that leads to frustration, maybe nagging, and then the cycle of stress for both you and your kiddo. You might initially focus on solving the symptoms by setting up reminders or taking away privileges. But what if you slowed down and said, what is the root cause? Is my child struggling from time management? Do they understand the material? Is this too challenging? Are they feeling overwhelmed or unmotivated? Is there a dynamic at school that's making them feel nervous about turning things in on time? Maybe that's not cool. Or maybe there was a comment made by someone who made them feel dumb. I remember in 4th grade being asked to go to the blackboard and do a math problem. I can't remember why. I want to say it's because I had messed up or something. I made a mistake and I couldn't get it right. And I was so mortified and embarrassed as I stood in front of the class and couldn't get this right. And I adopted the belief in that moment that I wasn't good at math. And still to this day, I notice my brain wanting to function from that place. So maybe something like that has happened. And understanding that a situation like that happened, normalizing it, creating safety around it, will help you know what to do next. So by addressing the root cause, it's going to help you make progress. Maybe they need additional support. Maybe they need a tutor. Maybe it needs to be okay that they're not getting it done because it's just too much, or there's other emotional things happening and this is not important in the big realm of things. You solve the bigger issue, you look at the bigger issue, and you're going to make progress. So once you've identified the cause, you could ask yourself, what's the simplest way to solve this? And how can I prevent this from happening again? And that is going to really unleash some interesting things in your brain. So if the root cause of the homework issue is poor time management, now I know what I'm trying to solve for. But if it's that they got shamed at school and now they don't think they're good at math, so they can't turn it in or they can't even look at the math homework without thinking that, they don't know what they're doing, that's an entirely different problem I'm solving for. Or if your toddler keeps throwing tantrums at the grocery store, you might discover the root cause is that they're just hungry and tired. And the solution is as simple as bringing snacks or adjusting your shopping schedule. Slowing down to analyze the problem and address the cause of the problem is going to save you so much time and energy in the long run. But we can't do that when we're doing unconscious reactions to the problems. As you work through problems in life, it's tempting to believe that they'll eventually run out. You're going to just run out of problems. You're going to solve them all. But the truth is, solving one problem often creates a new one. So once you figure out how to get your toddler to nap regularly, you might face the new challenge of getting them to stay in their bed all night long. Or after you teach your teen to drive, you might need to address their punctuality at getting home with that car or safety concerns you have. So each solution leads to a new opportunity for growth. And I think that's one of the most beautiful, miraculous things of this life is to realize that as soon as I solve this problem, there's going to be problem 2.0. That's going to teach me something even better that I couldn't have solved if I didn't solve this problem. So rather than resisting problems or seeing them as setbacks, what if we embrace them as tools for growth? Problems make us smarter. They really do. They allow us to become more creative, more resourceful. They're like weights in a gym. Each time you lift one, it makes you stronger. It makes you more capable. I want you to have that perspective because it's so empowering. It's so much better than thinking that it's a problem that shouldn't happen or I need to solve it or I need to get rid of it. When you face a tantrum, a boundary challenge, a sibling squabble, it's not just about solving the problem. It's about who you're becoming as a parent in the process of figuring out that situation. So each challenge teaches you patience and creativity and resilience. So when you help your child navigate their first big, let's say, friendship conflict, you're not just solving their immediate problem. You're also growing your capacity to guide and support and connect with your child when they're having interpersonal relationship problems. And you're helping your child grow in their skills to feel the disappointment or the hurt or whatever is coming up for them. They're becoming stronger too. That's so fantastic. Both of you are growing by problem solving through it instead of just trying to put a solution to it or get rid of it or think it's a problem they're having a friendship conflict. And I don't think most of us would think it was a problem that our child was having a friendship conflict. I think we would know intuitively that's just part of life. But we might want it to go away quickly, or we might want to try to rationalize with them how this isn't a big deal. And my invitation to you is to just be their guide in situations like that, in that particular situation when their child's having a conflict with a friend. Help them find the root cause and see the solution, just like we're talking about today. Help them consciously look at their problem. That is the biggest gift that they can learn. And they can only learn that when they have a problem. So I want you to think about every problem solved as being a step toward becoming more evolved, more creative, more wise. And that's what the process of problem solving is. Big problems, small problems. It's about growth, and it's so rewarding. So when you examine the problems in your life in this way, you're going to start to notice something. Many of the problems, quote unquote, you're facing are simply the result of unquestioned thinking or stories that your mind's created over the years. And once you start questioning your stories, those remaining problems become your life situations, the facts of your life instead of problems. Your unique set of opportunities to help you grow and evolve. That's what you start seeing problems as. And many people, right? Many of us, we want to eliminate the problems instead of solving them, or we want to just solve them really, really fast. And while there are times where walking away from a situation is the right solution, eliminating a problem can sometimes mean missing out on an opportunity to grow. So that short-term punishment we give our child or threat we give them to eliminate the problem might bypass an opportunity for us and our child to grow. But solving, on the other hand, involves creating something new, a solution that didn't exist before, a permission to have this emotional experience, practice within ourselves to be playful instead of critical and disengaging. So imagine you are so tired of your kids fighting, and you might be tempted to try to maybe eliminate the problem by issuing a threat. And even though this might provide short-term relief, it doesn't solve the root problem. So let's say they were fighting multiple times a day, and your initial thought is they're always fighting, I can't handle it. But you take a minute because you notice what that's creating for you, and you think, okay, I just listened to that podcast Andy put out. I'm going to try to do what we talked about in that podcast, which is funny. That's how I said it, because I do feel like we are in this conversation together as you and I are engaging in each episode. So yeah, think about this experience we're having together, and think about me being in your ear, a little earbud, and saying, okay, what do you want to think about this? Can you separate the facts from the story? What's your default thought? What do you want to think instead? And maybe reframe it as conflict as an opportunity for my kids to learn communication skill, or my kids fighting every day is developmentally appropriate, and I'm learning how to help them through it, or I'm learning how to allow them to regulate their emotion or get the foul frustration out. When we reframe it and we approach it like a puzzle that we're trying to solve, we're trying to put all the pieces together, it's going to feel so much better because we're getting really familiar with what's happening inside of us when the kids fight. We're getting really familiar with what's happening inside of the kids when they fight. And we're thinking through, why is this so triggering for me? And then you work from there. You hear it? So when you go to the problem solving of what's at the root cause of the kids fighting, which is stuff we do inside of League all of the time, we get into the root cause from a developmental point of view with attachment at the core, and we solve this with our 3 CMP strategies. And you do that, and instead of eliminating the problem, you're solving the problem. You're growing from the problem. You're equipping your kids and yourself with tools that will lead to long-term growth, better relationships, better connection. Life is always going to present us with new challenges. In parenting, once you solve one problem, another one's going to come up. It's just the way it is. And so every problem strengthens your ability to face the next one. I want you to think about all of the amazing things in the world that exist because of problems. Problems present challenges, and the process of solving them leads to innovation and progress. In our parenting, in the world of flight, you think of the Wright brothers, there was the problem they wanted to solve. They solved it by coming up with the amazing airplane. I still sometimes look up in the sky and I think, what? How do we do this? How do we do this? How is this possible? Or indoor plumbing. Hot water heaters. The problem was I want to have hot water, not just cold water. I want to have hot water. And someone figured out how to solve that. It's amazing. So problems are catalysts for our growth. And we are facing problems today that didn't exist a decade ago. And the problems that people are going to be solving in 10 years from now are going to be different than today's problems, because as we solve our problems, we are able to handle new problems. We went to dinner about a month ago when we were in Thailand. And I think I shared a little bit of this on a previous episode, I think. But anyway, we had this fantastic conversation about money and investments. And the kids were just so engaged. So engaged. To be honest, we still are talking about that conversation having questions about it. In fact, my daughter is doing an online class as we're traveling, a high school online class, so she can jump back into senior year next year. And it's financial literacy. And she came up to me just today and she said, Mom, I was able to pass the pretest completely because of what we talked about in that conversation in Thailand. And I love the fact that we have these conversations. And sure, the kids wanted to know a lot of answers immediately. And my husband, Scott, he is the best. He just listened to them, asked them more questions, and helped them figure out a lot of the solutions, the answers to what they were asking on their own by guiding them. And it stuck. They learned the information. They didn't just hear it and have it go in one ear, out the other. They learned the information and it solved, or rather they solved the problems. They answered the questions that they were asking. And we would talk and we would answer questions, but then they would put the pieces together. So we might talk to them about real estate and how that would grow over time, or investing in the stock market, or different career paths. And then they would say, okay, well, if I do that, then that would mean this later in my life, or that would create this kind of path of education. And they just put it all together. And even though it would have been simpler to just say, here's the solution, I'm just going to solve it for you. Without the process of the kids trying to solve the problem, they wouldn't have learned the tools. They wouldn't have had those answers. They wouldn't know how to use it in the future. And already, like after that conversation, I kid you not, one of my daughters had been wanting to do some cosmetology stuff, nail stuff. And she reached out and immediately started making plans of how she was going to make that happen once we get back home. And then my oldest daughter was within a week mapping out school and other job options. And then my youngest was thinking about how she was going to buy a car and what that would entail and if that was a smart decision. And then my youngest, Becca, too, was the one who was able to take the information we learned and actually pass the test. And so this process of here's a problem, because I had a problem they wanted us to talk about, they wanted to solve it at dinner, and they worked through it, and they were able to conceptualize the concepts of financial growth and investment with us. And then they had new problems to solve. Okay, with this information, when do I want to buy a house? Do I want to go to school now, later? Is it a smart investment to buy a car? They had all of these other problems that they now could solve or wanted to solve that they were figuring out. So this same principle applies to like every aspect of our life. If our child's struggling with, let's say, tying their shoe, it's tempting to just go in and do it for them, to just give them the answer right away, instead of helping them go through the process, helping them try and fail, but eventually succeed and gain this new skill that they can use for the next problem that they face. Sometimes it's knowledge that they're taking forward from the problem they solve. Sometimes it's perseverance. Sometimes it's patience. Sometimes it's curiosity. But we all learn and grow by going through problems and not avoiding them or rescuing, other people from them, because then they don't get to have the process of learning and growing. So to recap, you can break down any problem by separating the facts, which is the situation, from your thoughts, and asking yourself, what are the neutral facts will be so helpful when you're doing that. And then you're going to look at your thoughts and you're going to ask yourself, how are they shaping the problem? How are they impacting the problem? And then you're going to reframe the issue. How can I approach this problem as an opportunity or as something to solve or understand? And you're going to define the problem. What a creative and effective way to address the root cause. Address the root cause. We've been trained from a young age to seek the right, quote unquote, right answer, often from someone else, and to find it quickly. But that does not help us learn how to think or problem solve. True innovators have incredible capacity to explore, to make mistakes, to get things wrong, and to find solutions, because that process allows you to find solutions. This shift in mindset is essential. You guys, it's so essential if you want to be a calm, connected parent, no matter what crazy behaviors our kids are up to in the moment, or how we are maybe off on our game that day because of stress that we have in our life. When we increase our capacity by problem solving, we are better equipped to handle ourselves when we're having off-track behavior and our kids. And the solution, as we're problem solving, often requires patience and persistence and creativity. So here's a little assignment for you to do. It's going to set this year up so well. I want you to list all your problems. If you're ready to do this work, pull out a piece of paper, list all the problems you have in your life. Think about all of the things that feel like obstacles or challenges especially when it comes to parenting or reaching your parenting goals. So for example, you might have, my kids won't listen when I ask them to clean up. I don't have enough time to spend with my kids. I feel overwhelmed trying to manage homework and activities and on, right? Once you've identified your problem, separate the facts from your thoughts and ask yourself, is this truly a problem? Or is it just a thought creating unnecessary stress? If it is a problem, how can I solve it? And how do I want to define it as simply as possible? For instance, toys on the floor. And my thought might be, they're so messy. My kids are so disrespectful, or they won't put the toys away. So I could reframe it as the toys on the floor are an opportunity for me to calm my nervous system down, show up in a way of respect, and help my children learn to be responsible, really by modeling it, right? I'm going to be responsible in the way I react so that they can learn how to do that. And then once we simplified the problem, consider how solving it will help you grow. Every single problem, every single one is an opportunity for us to strengthen our skills, strengthen our resilience, strengthening our capacity to stay calm. So if your kids are struggling and getting ready for school on time, you might define the problem as mornings are chaotic because we don't have a routine. The solution might not come instantly. It might require a lot of trial and error, a lot of experimenting with strategies like setting alarms, creating a checklist, prepping the night before, setting the morning to music. And each attempt will teach you something, even if it doesn't work perfectly the first time. And that's the point. The process of solving the problem is just as valuable as the solution itself. I'm going to say that again. The process of solving the problem, the journey to get from here to there, the messiness, that's just as valuable, if not more valuable, than finding the solution. The most skilled problem solvers aren't the ones who just know the right answers. They are the ones, they are the parents who approach every problem as an opportunity. Can you imagine if every time my brain had a parenting problem alert go off, my children are fighting, they're not picking up, they're not doing their homework, they're not whatever, doing their chores. And instead of thinking, oh my gosh, this isn't okay, my thought was, how awesome, this is an opportunity for me to learn and grow. This is an opportunity for me to understand. This is the essence of life. This is what it's about. I'm so happy to have this opportunity to grow in my capacity. What if you thought every attempt to solve this problem builds my creativity and my adaptivity, and it prepares me for future challenges? What if we thought that? Wouldn't that be amazing? So remember, when faced with a problem, ask yourself, am I avoiding growth by trying to eliminate this problem? Get rid of it quick with a punishment, a threat, an ultimatum, or am I leaning in to understand? And then how can I redefine this challenge in a way that helps me evolve? The most elegant and innovative solutions often come from the simplest, clearly defined problems. So embrace the problem, experiment with solutions, and trust that every single problem, y'all, is part of this curriculum called life. So that's my challenge for you this week. Sit down, write down your problems, break them down, simplify them, reframe them, and then commit to the process of solving them to grow and learn from them. Not to find the quick fixes, to get to the root and to let them change you. To be changed by that which we cannot change. So good. You got this. Go out there, solve your problems, embrace the opportunity to evolve into the best version of yourself so that you can be the parent you've always dreamed of. Continue evolving into that. This is available to all of us. I love you all. You're doing so much better than you think you are. And don't forget, go connect your face off with your kids today. And if you liked this episode and haven't left a review or haven't subscribed to the podcast, I would love it if you would take a second and do both. We'll talk to y'all soon. Bye, guys. Thanks so much for listening, you all. If you are ready to learn more about Connect Method Parenting, if you've been listening to the podcast and you think, ooh, I'd love to be able to implement this in my life and with my parenting more, then check out Pivot. It's my 8-week program where we deep dive into learning and implementing Connect Method Parenting so that you can take this information and transform your parenting journey. Head over to connectmethodparenting.com to find out when the next group starts.